Okay, so welcome to the, I know it's a repeat of the fourth session of the Introduction to Marketing at Qualifi Level 3 in the Certificate of Business Management. Today we're really going to be talking about the marketing mix. That's the core element of it. So as usual, if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to send me a message. Either at the class or in private, or you can. There should be an icon on your top menu bar where you can sort of stick your hand up and I can call on you. So there's absolutely no such thing as a stupid question. You can ask me a question at any stage. Okay. I want to talk to you about this session with this picture in mind, first of all. So you'll see there's an orchestra here now. I don't play music. I like music, but I don't play it. I don't have that ability. I'm not kind of good at it. But I think this picture illustrates what we're trying to achieve with marketing. So if you think back to the elements that we've covered already around, what is marketing and what are we trying to achieve, and that sort of marketing focus, once we've got all of that and we know who our market is, what their needs are, and we've developed products or services that we believe will solve their pain and meet their needs, we have to communicate that to our market. And I think this example of an orchestra illustrates exactly what we need to do. It's about pulling a whole multi-layered strand of messaging together across different channels, different mechanisms, different messages to different people, because we're trying to reach a number of different people for the same purpose, but possibly with different messages. And what a really good conductor and a really good orchestra will do will have that multi-layered messaging down perfect so that the music you hear is sublime. It's perfect. Okay. And just before we get into that further, just to recap on partly why this is important, and this goes back to the end of session 3, just to draw that distinction from business to community, business to consumer, and business to business marketing. Remember, we're talking about lots of different markets and different segments potentially, as well as being focused either on consumers or on businesses. And that can have implications about the message that we're trying to convey. So, if we're talking about business to business, it can be more straightforward than consumer markets. And we're going to look at them side by side in a minute. But because businesses can be segmented according to industry, business size, or location in terms of turnover. So you can be talking about a multi-billion or multi-million-dollar business, or you can be talking about a small corner shop or a printing business down the street, or a hairdressing salon, or a beauty salon, or a restaurant. It can be segmented based on the number of employees, so large organizations, small organizations. It can be segmented based on technology. So more and more we're dealing with companies that it actually doesn't matter where they sit. They're competing on a global basis with a technology platform that enables engagement anywhere in the world. You think about things like Amazon or Google or Alibaba. These are sort of Uber. These are mechanisms that allow for broad engagement at a local level, even though the companies are headquartered in different places. Businesses can also be distinguished based on their purchasing approach or other relevant variables. If we look at them, and this is why I suppose we bring it back to the marketing mix and the importance of getting the right layering of communication. For business to consumers, we're talking about relatively low involvement of the buyer versus with business to business, relatively high involvement with them. So our target market for business to consumer, B2C, can be very large. Whereas our target market for a business to business, we may be talking about a much smaller niche approach, because it's much clearer who exactly we need to be dealing with, who we're going to be selling to. And the purchaser in a business to consumer marketplace is likely to be an individual, one person. Whereas actually the purchaser in a business to business environment it may well be a multiple of people, maybe multiple people involved, because the buying process has a number of different steps. So if I'm looking to sell a product to a business, quite often a business, for good reason, will have a purchasing process. So the sales cycle from my side, which is the purchasing cycle from their side, is longer and has multiple steps, including approval levels. So my initial contact will say, okay, yeah, we like that, but we're going to engage on it, and there's going to be a couple of things that we're going to deal with, and it's going to escalate it up to somebody who can actually make a decision about whether the company, the customer buys the product. Whereas on business to business, because we're talking about a single purchaser, it's a single step normally, much shorter sales cycle / buying cycle from their point of view. So the sales driver for a business to consumer situation for consumer, quite often it's on recognition and reputation. It's the relationship that we build with the consumer. Right? That's really important. Whereas if it's a business to business environment, there's much more than just relations. There's lots of detailed information involved, and governance on the buyer side means that there has to be more integrity in the buying process normally, in terms of being oversight and not just one person making the decision, but there being levels of authority and decision making involved. So what does that mean for something like marketing, for marketing mixes? Well, it comes back to what we talked about in communications. It's about having the right message, the right channel for the intended recipient. And it's how we break that message out across a whole range of elements that becomes much more interesting in terms of something like a marketing mix. Okay? And that's why, if you think about it, when the orchestra gets together and they're making music, it's about integrating all the different elements to create the perfect sound. And how those elements come together, depending on the recipient, depending on the style of music, determines the output at the end of the day. So, to recap in terms of what we're trying to cover in this module. So the first thing was about learning the importance of marketing in an organization, right? And we want you to be able to describe and compare how two organizations used different types of marketing techniques to achieve their target. I suppose the first thing with all this was, of course, having a marketing orientation, understanding that sort of pull process based on the consumer or the purchaser's needs or wants, and pulling the development of products and services and also a message forward, as opposed to a production orientation where we build something and we push it out and try to sell it. Okay? Or a sales orientation where we've got a product here and we're just trying to sell all the time and sell it at any cost. A marketing orientation means we're understanding who the customer is, who the consumer is, what their needs are, and we're building products and services accordingly, and we're also communicating and engaging with them accordingly as well. And that's sort of, when we talked about some of that elements of why it was important and how different organizations approach it, and some of the limitations of marketing as a result. The second stage then involved understanding market research and planning, why it was important to conduct that level of engagement so that we could identify how an organization can use market research to develop a marketing plan. So, understanding what those needs were, understanding what consumers valued, understanding who they like to listen to, whose integrity they respected. And all of that was very, very important. And you see that then in terms of how bigger companies approach and market their businesses. The next stage then was on understanding how and why customer groups are targeted. So I think this is one of the most important concepts around marketing, not just a marketing orientation, but understanding that there are different groups, there are segments within a market. So that being able to identify those segments is very, very important. So recognizing that, that we might build products for a whole range of reasons, but that different people buy them for different reasons. And once we understand that, then we can get into having a different message, a different engagement, a different relationship with the different groups. So it was that idea of understanding how and why groups are targeted, and how we can actually get to those groups is crucial, because that really enables us then to make decisions in this stage 4, developing a coherent marketing mix. How we would pull together different elements to create and enable that relationship with customers in different segments. That's what we're talking about in terms of marketing mix. Now, I haven't tested this out, so I don't know how to do it. I don't know how to work it. So I'm going to leave it up to you guys after this session to click on this link in the slide, because it brings you to a YouTube version of a King Curtis' song called Soul Stew. And this actually recording is from 1967. And it's a piece of soul music. But what it does is it builds in layer by layer by layer. It's one of the best examples, of the best illustrations of what we should be looking for in communication and in marketing mix. It's that idea of bringing in this instrument and then this instrument and this instrument and this element to build up to this shared, perfect piece of music. So that's King Curtis and Memphis Soul Stew is the full title. In fact, I should have Memphis here. Memphis Soul Stew is the full title. Song. And you know what? It's worth a listen. It's 2 or 3 minutes. It's worth a listen to get a sense of to get that idea that it's about this layering effect, this layering integrated effect. That's what we're trying to achieve in our communications and in our marketing mix. So to recap, what's our core marketing concept? Because this feeds right into where we're going. It's this idea of identifying the needs and wants and demands of our customers. Okay, the needs, wants, and demands. What are their needs? What does our customer, whether they're a business or a consumer, what is it that they need? More importantly, what do they want? And more importantly, again, are they in a position to demand that? Because if we can get, if we're very clear that our product or our service satisfies their demands, it gives us that ability to communicate this to them, which is why we will then hopefully achieve a sale. But once we understand what those needs and wants and demands are, we can then make sure that our products, let's go with a circle, much easier to do this, a circle, that our products and services, let me fix that, that our products and our services really, 1 second, really do meet those needs and wants. So that's what we're focused on. Once we understand the needs and wants, we can then develop products and services that meet those needs and wants. And we shouldn't be developing products or services that don't. If we're developing a product or a service and it's not focused on a need or a want or a customer demand, what are the chances that we're going to be able to sell it? That's a product or production orientation where we're producing something and then we're going to try and sell it. That's not the way to an effective business. We may get some sales, but it's not a way that we're going to build an ongoing relationship and reputation and continuously, as Sam Walton says there, exceed our customers' expectations. So Sam Walton was the chairman of Walmart. So he started off Walmart in about, I think it was the 60s. And Walmart, of course, is a retail store in the States. And it grew and it grew and it grew and it became bigger and bigger. And it became, the dominant retail force in America in many ways because it was low cost, in every town almost across the country, they would be able to go in and open up new markets. And because they got bigger, they were able to buy better, continue to exceed customer expectations, and which was really around price and value. So once they kept doing that, the customers kept coming back, and that enabled the growth and enabled Walmart over like a 40, 50-year period to grow to become the biggest retailer in the US. So it's that idea of understanding what the needs and wants and demands are, and then providing products and services to meet it. So what Walmart and Sam Walton did was they recognized that, particularly coming out of the boomer period, that, people needed value. They wanted to be able to buy more products, but, at a lower cost, get value for their money, as opposed to premium high-end products, and that there was a growing middle class base, and actually that, enabling that would enable growth within his business. And that's exactly what they did. And once you can achieve that, then you can, once products and services are aligned with the needs and wants of customers, then it's possible to achieve value and satisfaction with customers and to be perceived to be providing quality that they value. So it's not just about recognizing their needs or wants, or not just about building products and services to match. It's about crossing that line and getting to the situation where the customer realizes, I'm getting value. I'm getting satisfaction. I'm getting the quality I want at this price from this product or the service. And if we can get those three elements, then that's when we're going to build the transactions and the relationships. That's when we're going to be able to make the sales time and time and time again. And we understand that because we're able to recognize what the market is, and we're able to segment and drive down and to understand what those market segments are. And that's the core marketing concept. So if we can get all of that, we're in a much better position to grow, to establish, to grow, and to continue growing our business. Doesn't mean we can ever rest on our laurels. We have to continuously develop. But this is what really good businesses do. And really good businesses come in all sizes, all shapes and sizes. So, a really small local store that continuously meets its customers' requirements and expectations, is likely to be able to survive. Unless those expectations are all about cost value, in which case that's when the bigger stores come in. That's when they start to create difficulties. So we talked about market segmentation last week in particular, and I've just sort of been talking about that. And it's that process of dividing up mass markets into groups based on the premise that not all buyers are the same. Not all buyers are the same. That's a crucial piece. If we recognize that, we're recognizing different segments, then that means that we really have to have different messages for different people. So if we're going to achieve competitive advantage and we're going to outperform the market and we're going to make lots of profits, we have to identify the segments. We have to be able to target those segments of demand, target those specific segments, and develop a specific marketing mix for each targeted market segment. That's what we're going to have to do. So we had this example last week, and it was the wine customer segmentation in the US wine market. And if we look at this here, we're talking about the average spend per bottle being high to low, or low to high, if you like, and the consumption frequency, low frequency to high frequency consumption. So having some sort of picture on our market like this, whether it's your local business that sells electronic repairs or sells bicycles, or it's a bigger national business, or it's an international business, having some sort of segmentation, some sort of picture of the marketplace and being able to segment that in some way means that we can understand where our customers are and what distinguishes those customers in those groups. So what this illustration shows is that there are up here on the top right, there are engaged explorers. Now, those engaged explorers, they're not the biggest part of the market, but there are a number of people who are engaged in wine consumption. So they consume wine quite frequently. And they're also looking at the quality. They're also spending a lot of money per bottle. So they have disposable income. Okay? They have disposable income. They do spend money. And they tend to be committed to what they're at. So, according to this particular model, there are 84 million wine drinkers in the US. And of those, 10% are up in this bracket here. 10% are engaged explorers. So 10% means 8.4 million buyers who buy frequently, and spend a lot of money on their wines. So that's a very nice segment to be able to identify. And if we've got a product or a service for that segment, and we can get some ground in that segment, then we need to pitch our marketing mix appropriately. Okay? So, there might, I'm not saying that this is the case, but there might be a variation that there tend to be younger, diverse wine styles. I'm not sure if that's necessarily true. I think that's a bit of a leap there. If they're engaged explorers, they may well be middle to older as well, because they have more disposable income. But having said that, there might be experimenters. So again, there's probably a broader mix of age groups in there than is indicated by the panel on the right. But certainly the fact that they're up in that segment means that they're spending a lot of money per bottle, means they're consuming a lot of bottles. So if we've got a product or a service, we've got to pitch it accordingly in that space. And the message and the marketing mix that we use with these people will be radically different than what we do with these down here. So down here, we've got a much bigger segment of the market, about 25%, so 22 million wine buyers who don't consume as regularly, so less often. Maybe it's one bottle a week, maybe it's one bottle a month or one bottle a fortnight. Up here, it might be, 3 bottles a week, 1 a day. I don't know. Honestly, I don't drink, so I don't know what's good or bad about this. In terms of volumes, I'm going to let somebody else decide on that. But down here, these senior bargain hunters, maybe let's say there's 1 every 2 weeks, 1 every month. Okay, so they're a big group in the marketplace. They're the biggest volume in terms of people. Okay, but they're not consuming very often, and they're buying low price, low cost average spend per bottle. Okay, because we're calling them senior bargain hunters because they're more than likely older, maybe knowledgeable, but they have a limited selection. They're more likely older, possibly retirees, so making their pensions stretch. And because they're older, they're coming from a baby boomer generation. They're probably looking for more value for money as well. So they don't like spending a huge amount of money on a bottle of wine, which is going to be consumed. So the message, the marketing mix that we would pitch to senior bargain hunters be radically different to engaged explorers. So when we talk about our products, assuming we have a product for these guys, we're not going to be talking about the price, because price doesn't interest them. They're relatively price inelastic. We want to be talking about the fact that it's probably a high quality wine, or that it's different because they're explorers, that it's from this region and has this particular taste, and it's a way for them to explore and experience a new wine. Whereas down here, we might be talking about, 6 bottles for the price of 5, okay? Or, everyday bargains or whatever it is, because we've sourced bottles at the right price to enable us to cut the price on these. In addition, these senior bargain hunters, if they're older customers, it's unlikely that they're entering the market for the first time. So we don't necessarily need a message here that's trying to bring them in and grow them up to a higher spend in the marketplace. We need to recognize them for what they are, which is, they're unlikely to move too much out of that sector, out of that segment. So our product or services in this segment are probably not going to lead to massive growth. Okay. Whereas up here, we've got contented treaters. So these are 17% of the market, 14 million of them. Okay. Now, they don't consume as much, but they do spend money. So we do want a piece of this market. And maybe we might find a way to move them towards being exchange explorers if we treat them right, and if we build a relationship with them, and we get them interested in some new things, and maybe some of them then become engaged explorers. And if we've got them on our products, we can keep them on our products. Again, it depends. I suppose it's a matter of looking at the different segments and recognizing that the engagement and the relationship with the different segments needs a different message, a different marketing mix. And that's what the whole purpose of this particular session is about. So what is a marketing mix? So going back to 1910, I think, originally is when, the process of marketing would have first been described in the literature, in academic journals. But it was in 1948 that a guy called James Culleton identified the idea of the marketeer as a mixer of ingredients. Now, there's two really important words there. First of all, there's ingredients. Okay? So the market here is a mixture of ingredients, that there's a number of different elements. So if you're making a salad, or you're making a pasta dish, or you're doing a stir fry, you're bringing in a number of different ingredients, and they work in different ways. So, you know, you might be using a soy sauce or a hot pepper or whatever. You're trying to figure out what flavors that they bring together, what ingredients work best together, and that the marketeer is a mixer. So the marketeer as a mixer is an important concept. That the marketeer is making a choice as to how he pulls these things together. So Culleton is identifying the fact that the marketeer is a bit of a chef, really, right? And that they have the ability to create a marketing dish based on using different ingredients. Niall Borden, a Harvard academic, though, was the one who coins the phrase then of marketing mix based, and he credits Culleton with this. He says, you know, well, actually, you're going to refer to this idea as being the marketing mix. Okay? And if we've got this idea that there are different ingredients and we can combine them in different ways, well, then we'll call that the marketing mix. So that's what Borden calls. In 1960, then, E.J. McCarthy then sets out the 4 P's of the marketing mix. So he sets out what those 4 P's are in the marketing mix. Anybody want to hazard a guess as to what one of those P's is? Anybody want to type? A volunteer? Yeah, price. Price, absolutely, that's one. Okay? So there are 4 P's. Thank you very much, Sarah. So price is one. Product is another. Promotion is another. Okay? And there are variations as to what the others are. So we got packaging, people, principle. Okay? So the 4 P's has grown over time. So we're going to go through discussing elements of this now. And the idea here is that, you know, every business is different. Every business is producing different things. And it's how do you pull your marketing mix together to make the biggest impact in the marketplace. So the first P is product. Now, for product, you can read service as well. Okay? So when we talk about product, it's product or service. So what we really need to do is evaluate the customer needs and then establish how and where the product will be used. Because that can then help us make decisions on branding, on packaging, and also enable us to distinguish the product in the marketplace. So, you know, we might think about the product in different ways. So if we think about Coca-Cola, right? So Coca-Cola isn't a drink. That's not what the product they're selling is. Of course, they're selling a liquid, okay? But really what they're selling is they're selling the effect of that product, okay? They're really selling, I suppose, in many ways, what they're really trying to sell is refreshment. Okay? So, you know, the product are their what they're trying to convey with their product. And any ad you see for Coca-Cola, you know, it's a hot day, there's beads of condensation on the bottle, and you've got the beautiful people, boys, girls, whatever it is, popping it, taking a drink, and it's that whole essence of, oh, this is great. This is Coca-Cola, really refreshing. And what is it? It's a cocoa-flavored drink with lots of sugar, okay? And ideally cold. But that's what they're getting across. That's what the product is from Coca-Cola's point of view. So what's the customer need? Well, the customer need isn't that they're dehydrated. They may be. The customer, it's not even so much a need as a want. The customer is thirsty. They're in need of refreshment. Whether they get that from splashing cold water on their face, from drinking Coca-Cola, or from drinking cold water, okay, or milk or something. So understanding what the customer need is. So And of course, Coke are really good at this. Coke are really good at marketing. So they're resonating. They're finding ways to resonate with their customers all the time. Okay? And their branding and their packaging is all about reflecting Coca-Cola, both as a brand and about what they're trying to get across. So it's that refreshing thing. So, of course, Coke have taken it a stage further now. They've got the brand name, as you see there on the screen, but also the bottle, the very idea of the curvy bottle, right? That's their bottle. They went to try and trademark a bottle, actually, at one point. Say that, no, nobody else can produce a bottle like that. If you look at Nike, of course, what's Nike's famous slogan? It's just do it. Okay? And Nike, in many ways, they talk about releasing the athlete in all of us. So what their product is, it's not a shoe or a t-shirt. Their product is about releasing athleticism. So they're recognizing the athlete in everyone. It also kind of means they're saying everybody's an athlete. The challenge there, of course, is, well, is everybody an athlete? Well, in their own way, they are. But it's that essence that they're getting across, that it's, tying in sport and energy and doing and challenge. So some of Nike's ads are very, very smart. They bring across this idea of, a non-traditional athlete or a non-traditional approach. But they're getting across the idea that what they're selling, what their product is just do it. It's about being active. So that's what they're selling. And, one of their very first ads is of a guy who was 80-something, who every day would run 7 or 8 miles across the Golden Gate Bridge. That was their ad. This guy, filming him, jogging across the bridge with his Nikes. And it was all about, just do it. Just get out there, just run, just exercise. So it's not about a shoe. They're not selling a shoe. They're not selling footwear. They're selling something beyond that. McDonald's is really interesting because, of course, McDonald's is selling food. So it's a product. It's a Big Mac. It's fries. It's chicken nuggets. It's a milkshake. But what's McDonald's really selling? Are they selling nutritious foods? Not so much. Hate to tell you, not so much. But what they are selling is consistency. Consistency and not refreshment so much as taste. So the idea for McDonald's, of course, is that, what does the customer need from McDonald's? Well, I was in Paris recently and we were starving because we were bad, and of course we were really hungry and under pressure for time and everything else. And we had to choose, well, we need to eat something really fast. So we ended up going to McDonald's in Paris, which is almost like sacrilege in some ways. But we knew what we were going to get. Okay? So we didn't have to worry about what, the quality, because it's McDonald's. I'm not saying the quality was good, it was McDonald's. That's all. But we knew what it was, so it was a low-risk decision. And I'm not saying McDonald's is at low risk, but it's about that consistency, that idea that, once somebody tastes the McDonald's, it's like almost like a family thing for, because there's normally kids involved. So it's same thing, no matter where you go, it's the same process, the same product, the same taste, the same outcome. It's consistency. That's what they're selling. And they do that in such a way so that every store is the same. The layout maybe is slightly different, but the interiors, the plastic fittings, the bins, the experience, it should always be the same because they're selling consistency and the McDonald's taste, which of course there's so much salt, etc. in it, so that you've got that unique taste, and when you come back that's what you're going to get. So that's what McDonald's are selling in terms of their product. Apple. So what are Apple selling? So Apple is really interesting. So in 1984, what they were selling was different, I think. So it was the phrase we used. Okay. When Jobs came back, it was I. That's what they were selling. The I, as in iMac or iPad. And then, of course, they had the crazy ones. There's another campaign. And it was around, again, thinking differently, or being, recognizing that geniuses and the ones that who change the world are always the ones who are not recognized in their own time. They're always considered as nutcases or oddities, and they're not recognized for what they're saying. So that actually it's only later on that people look back and they say, these are the geniuses, the crazy ones. So what Apple are selling is they're not selling computers. They're not selling software. They're selling an experience. They're selling the chance to be different. They're selling this idea that with your iPhone or your iTunes or your iPad or your iMac, that you're part of the cutting edge, that you're the creative, that you're different, you're thinking different, you're not in lockstep with the rest of the world. So that's very much what they're selling. And of course, that's evolved over time. But that's what their products are about being different. They look different. And of course, this all comes across in branding and everything else. IKEA, probably the biggest furniture company on the planet, they talk about at the moment what their strapline is, the everyday. The everyday. In other words, IKEA was found the basis that, nice furniture should be available to everybody, which means you've got to bring the price down, you've got to bring the cost down, you've got to have your operations effectively, producing stuff effectively at a low cost, and have your distribution and your channels and everything else geared towards that, experience to enable people to access quality, bright, fashionable furniture in a way that actually works for them. So when we talk about product, we have to be clear that we're understanding what our customer needs. So even if you just look at those examples there, a shoe, a meal, a drink, a computer, and furniture, there's none of them selling one of those things. They're selling something beyond that. And their product or their service is aimed at satisfying a need or a want within the customer that's beyond just the basic functionality. And I think understanding that really helps you shape what your marketing mix is, what your product looks like, how it's experienced, where it's experienced, how you brand the product. All very important. The next P, of course, is place. How will the product reach the market? What are the channels of distribution? How do we decide on methods of storage? How will it be handled and transported? How will we emulate or differentiate our products from the competition? So let's start with IKEA. So, of course, the key thing about IKEA, two elements. Fundamental. Flat pack, that's the first thing. So IKEA recognizes, and this goes back to the very early days of IKEA. So IKEA was founded by this guy, Ingvar, I can't pronounce his surname. He's the IK in EA in IKEA. And his idea was around this idea that it was a catalog business originally. And it was this idea that, people in cities can have access to furniture stores where they can buy furniture for their homes. People out in the countryside where he lived didn't have that ability to go to the cities. It was too difficult to go to the cities and buy furniture and come back. Well, of course, it wasn't that. It was difficult. It was just a bigger issue and a more challenge, and they had less money. So he wanted to make available to the people in the countryside the same things that were available to people in the cities. So he came up with this catalogue, and that's where IKEA came from. One of the challenges he realized in the first couple of years was, of course, well, you know what? He could get more products into a van to bring them out to be delivered if they were disassembled. So this was the idea that actually he could help get more products out and bring the cost down by taking that element of assembly and passing it on to the customer. Not that the customer necessarily wanted to do, what the customer wanted was the choice and the value. So the place from IKEA, and this ties in with the product, but also the place for IKEA originally was that it was delivered locally. And of course, that influenced the whole development of IKEA, in that the IKEA store now is very much geared towards, I'm the customer, I'm taking part of the burden by choosing my product, by collecting my product, by bringing it to the till, paying for it and bringing it home and assembling it. So this idea around IKEA and the idea of the place was very much, I want to see the product in different options, figure out what I want, and then pull it off of the shelf from the warehouse. So the whole IKEA store experience. One second. And store layout is important. I don't know if any of you have ever been to an IKEA. I don't know what the penetration is like in Asia, but certainly Europe, America, Latin America, I think, they're pretty much global. So I hope the idea is relevant, I hope. In terms of place, well, of course, McDonald's is the other place. Well, where does McDonald's put its stores? Well, McDonald's puts its stores where there are people. Okay. Lots of people, because that makes sense. It doesn't make sense to put a McDonald's store out in the middle of nowhere. So McDonald's stores will be in malls, they'll be in city centres or town centres, they will be at motorway refueling and refreshment places, and high streets, because that's where people will be. It doesn't make sense so McDonald's is not aiming to be a Michelin star restaurant, a very high class, very expensive, very unique dining experience where people will travel to it for that. It's about convenience. Remember we said about the consistency of food and the convenience where people are, because their business model is geared based on turnover, based on having large volumes. So they have to be placed where people are. Equally, they're going to be placed on airports, placed at places where people are going to be hungry and need normally a quick solution. So it's about getting people in, getting them fed, getting them out. It's not about a sit down for 2 or 3 or 4 hours. That's not what McDonald's is about. So the place is consistency, looks the same, feels the same, where people are, easy access, easy egress, get back out again, get the same product, the same taste and everything else. Nike, on the other hand, doesn't run its own stores, certainly not in Europe. It sells through retailers. It does all of its selling, its promotion, etc., through advertising and so on. But then it partners, so it sells through partners, and quite often a lot of those are some sort of sports related partners. Okay, so they would be health store, sports stores, sports outlets, sporting emporiums. So you don't go to a core, straightforward shoe shop necessary to buy Nikes. You may or may not find Nikes there, but they're actually much more associated with sports, because again, it's about that just do it, releasing the athlete in us. That's what Nike is about. So that's what the place is. If we talk about price, now price is very interesting. So in many cases, for a lot of businesses, particularly new businesses, we look at price based on how much it costs us, and then we work out the price. But that's the wrong way to approach price. Price is should be based on, what will the customer pay? What do they expect us to pay? What's the link the customer makes with the value they're getting? So the price point is based on the market, not based on the cost. If we've identified customer needs which are very much cost linked and value based, and that's what the focus is on, then of course the price has to reflect that. We have to find a way to keep the price down, because that's what the customer wants. It's part of the customer buying criteria, which means we've got to get our back end and get our volume and everything driven in that way. But if the price, if the cost is not the issue, is not as much an issue, but the utility or the experience is, then we get to charge more for the product. So the price point should be based on market norms, based on the perceived value by the customer. So that's interesting, based on the perceived value by the customer. And that's what we're talking about. Okay. And like I said, it can depend on how price sensitive the customer is. And of course, because we know our customer, we're trying to figure out a price point which gives us a competitive edge over our competitors. So part is understanding how do our competitors see our customers? Do our competitors think our customers are all driven by price? And actually, we think our customers aren't, because if you think back to the wine example that opened that top right cohort there, these explorers. So we know that for them, price isn't as big an issue. So we can put our pricing and our other elements of the 4 Ps together on the basis that we're competing effectively for those customers' attention. But if our competitors are competing on price, maybe that's not the right way to compete for that segment of the marketplace. So, Nike wouldn't necessarily be a price price competitor. So Nike may well be regarded as a premium price product. Okay? And they tie that in with some sort of endorsement. So you're not just buying a Nike shoe, you're buying the Nike Air or the Nike Jordan Air or whatever it is. So it's tied in with a basketball player or somebody else. So you pay that premium product. Whereas McDonald's very much is about value and low cost. But yeah, you're looking for the consistency but you're looking at consistency at a low price, and you're not going to pay, a fortune for a burger from McDonald's, which is mass produced, and it's questionable, food quality in one sense. You're looking for a value and a low-cost solution, because McDonald's, from their point of view, is based on all that turnover, getting people through in and out quickly. Coca-Cola, again, is a slight premium because they're selling refreshment. Okay, so you can buy you can get water out of a tap. Right? You can get water from a river. If you can access it, it can be free. Right? So why would you pay for Coca-Cola? Because you're paying for more than that. You're paying for refreshment. You're paying for that image, that hit that Coca-Cola gives you from the sugar rush. Apple, again, you're paying to be different. Right? That's what you're paying. You may be paying for slightly better quality or access in different ways or better utility. So certainly from using an iPhone on occasion, you may be paying more. Like an iPhone, today's version of the iPhone is up to €1,000 here, which doesn't make any sort of sense to me. But that's what some people are paying, because they're getting the latest iPhone, the latest kit, the latest technology. I don't get it. So that's price. So product, place, price, promotion. Promotion 4. Looking at when and where to reach the target market. When and where to reach the target. Okay. What's the optimum medium? Is it television? Is it radio? Is it internet? And what are the techniques that our competitors use? How do we best get the right marketing mix? So Nike, of course, use TV a lot. TV and YouTube. Okay. McDonald's use TV. A huge amount. As a Coca-Cola. IKEA, yeah, they do a bit too. So a lot of people use TV and radio and so on. But when you start to peel back down towards the local businesses, they can't afford television or radio. So they're using more local. They might be using local radio, might be using local press. They might be using Facebook ads, internet-based marketing and so on, because they're very clear on who their customer is and how they're trying to get their promotion across. Like we talked about, the price and place and product, etc. So as I said, there are some additional P's. I won't talk about those now. Person, process, or principle, or purpose. but really it's the 4 Ps are the core elements. If you want to look at more in a little detail, look into those elements there, which is sort of a blown out version of that. But in conclusion, if you bear in mind each of these products, each of these businesses, they are very clearly marketing oriented. They're not production oriented. They're producing products and they're continuously adapting their products to perceived customer benefit. So they understand who their customers are, just like the market, they understand who their customers are and what their needs are, and they produce integrated marketing to get across this idea around the product or the promotion or the price or the place, in whatever it is that they figure their customers are most in tune with, to their customers, and they're building profits through customer satisfaction, through repeat business, through customers paying premium prices, or buying more products from them, or locked into them in terms of buying more of their products or more of their value, or visiting their stores more often. So they're very much a marketing orientation, which is where they build, they shape, and they tune their marketing mix towards. So that's, I suppose, a very rough introduction to marketing. What's the market? Why are customers important? Understanding needs, understanding the segmenting, and then building the appropriate marketing mix to meet those customers. So I hope you found that of use. Thank you very much. And I'll see you in the next class.